Hello, welcome back. So we are on episode 7 and we are still not done with the project yet. I mean, giving 1 hour per day, I think that's a reasonable time to have. So we stopped at the error handling and the try and catch from last time, which I'm still not sure that much about, because we do the try and catch here and then we do the if else statement here, and if this throws an exception, we handle the exception part. So okay, now to revise again what you said. I think today will be more of comprehension than an actual coding part, but you'll see. Actually, let's change that to black and then make this one white. Okay, it doesn't work like that. How about we just have a new one, and then we have this color here. I'm pretty sure I picked this one. Yes, and then the brush, we'll have it here as black. Yes, better. Now we'll be having our database here. Let's make it cylinder. Actually, it's a bit funky. So we have our database here, and then we are getting the user's information from here. Well, the user's information will be going to the service layer first, and since we are using a wrapper class, which is the optional, yes, the result can be null, so we need to handle this part. So we say null handling. I mean, that doesn't go with every case necessarily. It goes with some cases and some not. So we make the if else statement and we say if it's present or not, else we throw an exception which says it is not there. So that's how we figure out the first problem that we have. And then there is only two outcomes. Either it gives an error, the user is not there, or goes to the controller. And in the controller class we have two other options that can come. So now we definitely have the user. The only issue is we have it's the correct false or null. So let's see what can an example be for a false. Good question. How can the data that we get from the database is false? Okay, let's ask ChatGPT about this. Create for me a basic GET request for getting an ID from a database using Spring Boot and PostgreSQL. So that's the dependency. the configuration here, we don't need the driver class, that's under data source. That's the wrong thing to add here, so we will see this later. Of the users, we have the repository, and then for the controller, what if the not found path we added to the code is already applied in the service layer by adding optional and is present? But from what I can see, having the optional will be better to add to the service layer, not the control layer. Exactly. So how can this part even exist? And by exist I mean return sponsor entity.ok. It can never give an error unless we set up something bad in our response entity. Well, it's a good way to divide our error handling, but I think the error here has nothing to do with the input that we have taken from the database rather than the response entity or anything related to that. So basically, if we did something false here, not here but here, and then for some reason the status is missed or something, but I'm still not sure how would that happen. Why is the try and catch in this code necessary? Okay, what can an example be for an unexpected error for this code that will activate the message? That could activate the cache block in your code will be understandably handled by normal application flow. Database connection issue. If the application fails to connect to the database, the server might break down. Fail to connect to the database. This one checks if the input that we got is right or not if we manage to connect to the database or not. But null pointer exception, null pointer exception, I think we avoided that. Out of memory error, file system issues. But for the first reason, doesn't it show by getting the error 400? Four 400 is a bad request. 500 is an issue. Okay, I see. Idea pass, if the URL is not valid, long, or cannot convert to a long, Spring Boot will automatically detect as a bad request. So it has to be with what I write in this part here, but not necessarily with what's happening there. is used when something goes wrong on the server, but yeah, it's very general purpose. We are not sure what exactly went wrong. User not found with ID. That's the part that we will return. So in this case, yeah, that's the string. That's the null. An error occurred, and then get message status. I need to get an explanation for that part because I know just a bit about my error messages, but not everything. Block and code responsible for constructing and returning HTTP response. Okay, there is a return response and status. Response is for creating the response that have three things. We have the header, we have the body, and we have something else that I forgot. HTTP status code for the response corresponds to the HTTP status code 500, which indicate that the unexpected error occurred. The status code informed the client that the error was on the server side, not the client end, which typically resulted in a 404. Okay. This is useful for indicating a request was valid but something went wrong during the process. Method says the body e.getMessage will provide details about what went wrong during the execution. So back to our graph. In the service we checked the null, but in the controller we check for mostly anything. It's used as a convenient, not as a necessity. So it's only there to check for, just to check what type of error we got instead of just 500. I'm getting it correctly? I think I do. Okay, so far so good. Error not okay. Now the other part that we now studied will probably be error handling, and then we say getting the specific error, and what else? Handling nulls. And just to make sure we have everything here, that we did everything here correctly, I would actually delete this part, write it as a comment here, just to test myself about it, and I'll do the same thing with the service. Stick this out here, and then go under, Ctrl V, and then we comment that part. So we said we'll be getting the email. Yeah, we don't need that part right now, and I completely forgot how we got the email. We take the long ID and then find by email, and then return that. So return, we have the user repository dot find user by ID, and then we pass the ID, then we say dot get email, if I'm not mistaken. I forgot the optional part, yes. So this has to be entirely inside of non-optional, at least till this part, and then we delete everything here. So what do we say that is optional? No, we don't need the option here. The result is optional. We call it string email, and then we paste this. But now this is, how do we get the optional? We get it through mapping. Let me see dot map. Then what do we exactly map? Let's just do this. Say p dot get email. How does that look? So let's ask ChatGPT about it. I was pretty sure that I will not remember it, because this part is very easy to remember because it's void. I think I'll be doing the entire project actually again another time with less research. And what we have here, have a post map. Okay, never mind. Yes, I'll be doing this project again, but this time we will be actually building an actual project. Yeah, okay, that's how we handle it. Because I almost forgot how do we handle it. Oh, dot, or is it dot? I don't think so. Yeah, it is, or else no. Then we return email. I'm not sure, that's not how we did, but something new, we'll check. So we did find by ID and we get the optional user, and then this is where we handle the null. So if the user is present, and if it's not, okay, interesting. I almost got it, but I need to never forget that we have the structure, which basically is if else to handle the optional in the service layer, and also we have the try and catch in the controller layer. Okay, so far so good. Now let's change all of this. So we will make this optional. And then we will remove all of this here. Oh, yeah, it is optional user, not email. Yes, users. And then we will call it user, because that's what the end result from the find by ID. Then we will remove this and we say if the user is present, what we will do is we will return user dot get email. I think we have to map it first, or else I don't think we'll use the else or default if we got it. User dot get email. Okay, dot get. I'm not sure what does get in this context mean. Now the get email is the getter that we said. What does the get method here do, and to which, not which class does it belong to? Okay, so it does belong to the user and is used to retrieve the value inside the optional, which is not empty if it is present. Okay, so this is part of the optional methods and it's used to get what's inside. So there is two ways to handle the optional. It's either you get it or you set it to null. Okay, didn't notice it for some reason. Else just null, I think. User not found. It's a runtime exception. Might as well just get used to having comments. To check if the user is in the database or not. Then what we have here, throw new runtime exception. I'm not specifically sure why runtime exception. User couldn't be found. Okay, we have to specify since it's specifically related to the ID. If the ID of the user wasn't in the database, yeah, I think that's about it. But why specifically runtime exception? Why not any other exception? So why runtime exception and not any other exception? Might be chosen. Why? Unchecked exception indicates critical issue, fail fast, no need to handle in context. Alternative, which and why we would be using them. No such element exception if the goal is to explicitly indicate that the user could not be found. More specifically, exception. Yeah, that I was searching for actually. That was what was on my mind. No such element exception seems to be like better. Okay, we wrote everything from the beginning here. Now let's get back to the response. So we will be needing a try and catch here, and we need to make a response entity, but the response I think should be outside of the try. Response entity, is it user or string? I'm pretty sure it's user. if it's user, then before we continue with the variable here, what do we want to get out of the catch? So we have the ID, and we want to send to the service the variable. I need to dial back a bit. We are in the controller, and we need to get the yes, we need to get the service first. We need to pass the parameter of the ID. So how about this return, and then we get the ID inside. So how do we get the ID? Let me think about it. The idea is in my brain, but I'm struggling to take it out for some reason. Then how about this? The user service dot its username by ID, and then we type the ID that we just got. But that's not the return value, because what is the result that it gives? It gives a string, so we should type this as a string email, and that's the email that we get, and we want to make a response for it. How do we add the email to our response entity? Okay, nothing comes to my mind, so we'll have to check again. So okay, yes, we did need to make the email first, but I wrote it outside. I don't think in this context will matter that much. And then you return response entity dot okay. Yes, that was what I was going to search. Explain to me the dot okay method and what it does. The dot okay seems to be adding it to the body and make a response out of it. It's part of the response entity class in Spring, and it's used to build an HTTP response with an 200 okay status code. Let's break down the method. We have the header. Yeah, that's the part that I was missing. We have the status code, we have the header, and we have the body. Currently we are not touching the header, that's for the authentication. We'll get to that part. The body is the answer, and the status code is we will add as okay. The static method in the response entity class is a convenient method that returns response entity with an HTTP status of 200 okay. Okay can be used when you want to indicate that the request was successful, and then the server returning data to the client. Returns response entity with a 200, allows you to set the response body. So yes, like I said, it does two things. So now in Udacen we studied about the response dot okay email. What does it do? It basically sends back 200 status code, and also writes our result in the response body. Okay, so let's try to do it again. It doesn't really matter if that catch here is there or not. Sorry about the string. And then we will make a response entity dot okay, and then we add the email. But we just need to call on the method and nothing else. Yes, we don't have to specifically make a variable out of the class. Exception and what will be the method throw new not such elementary, so I'm not sure. Return here will be a bit different for the exception. You'll get the message for the specific error, but then we have response entity dot status. Okay, that's a new thing that we need to check. Explain the status dot the dot status method. The dot status method is a response entity is used to set HTTP status code, and not allowed HTTP status should be sent back. The eternal server error, I think it was the 500 one. So why do we need to okay, we do it in details because we don't want to get just the error of 500. We want to get the 500 triggered, and then when it triggered we get the message for it. So in order to do that, we should be also doing the 500 result first. So we make the response, and then you make the status, which is this is the summary of the 500 error, and then you add to the body of it also the dot get message to know specifically what happened. Yes, so that's how you get more detail. Actually, we should make a project here about one of the struggles. So I say one of the biggest struggles I had now is probably not handling errors efficiently. Since I get an error of 500, but I am not sure what exactly went wrong. The other stuff is just knowledge. I wouldn't call it like knowledge and bugs. Of course, there's a simple bug that you will spend most of the time on it, but that's I think they are very limited. Once you get across them, there will be no need to actually do them again. So it's not that we will have an exception here. We will have response entity dot status again. Actually, we call it the HTTP first. HTTP status dot bad request. That's the 400. Bandwidth limited. Expectation failed. Found gateway timeout. Not supported. You see different type of specific status that you can add here. Definitely not about the okay. Payload is too large. Payment redirected. Failed. Authentication required. Timeout. There is a lot of options. Eternal server error issue. I mean, that's also a very general one, so but we can pick out of here all the possible versions that we have depending on here. But that's the very general one, and we want it for now because we just want to get the message. So what is it called again? Internal server. and we also added the list. We have also the status response dot status, and we have the HTTP status here dot, and then we have the one that I keep on forgetting, dot. Actually, I'll leave this empty because it literally can be anything. So now we created the normal issue. Now, yes, after that we go to the body. We type in the body what we want to type, which something went wrong, and then we add e.getMessage. So every time we need to write something in the body, we'll have to specify the body, and then we say something went wrong, and we say the plus here e.getMessage. Oh, okay. Now I want to make a post request. The variables here, everything seems to be going fine. Let's check here. We have my Tim. What else do we have? We need to make a GET request with the ID 1, and we get Tim. What will happen if we wrote an email that didn't exist? User not found with ID 2, which is the message that we basically wrote for the no such element exception that we have here. Wait, how did that happen? It's exactly the same message. User not found with... Okay, so user could not be found. Actually, should I reload? I mean, if I reload, I'll fuck up a lot of stuff, but it's showing this error, and then it's showing it in combination with this one here. Now after writing all of this code, the result for errors will be like this. How did we get the message from the controller mixed with the message from the service? So the controller exception handling, okay, the service layer contains the core business logic and interact with the database. User not found situation, the service might throw an exception. Optional is empty if the user doesn't exist. Do we throw something here that says it is empty? I mean, if it's empty, we say throw a new exception. No, we don't throw an exception. Okay, no, we do throw an exception, which is this. When the controller calls the service, it expects either a valid user or an exception, because yes, it's an if else. If the user is not found, the server will throw an exception. Yeah, actually there is a better way to write. Instead of having an if else statement here, we can just write if. Yeah, there's no need for the else here. So if the user is present, we return this, else we throw an exception. When the controller calls the service, it will expect either a valid user or an exception if the user is not found. So we'll throw an exception like user not found ID, and the controller catches this exception and adds some context to it. In this case, the string. Very interesting how we handle error that way. And that's why we have the try and catch here. And you make the try and catch only responsible for the response part of the code, and then making the service responsible for throwing the error, and the catch will happen here. Okay, so it's divided. We have the I don't need that. Let's pick the brush again. So you will have this. Let's change something here, maybe this. So you have an error here, which will be thrown to the controller, and the controller will catch, while also dealing with the header. I'll have to write it just to memorize it. The body, and then we have here the status code. Okay, so everything seems to be making more and more sense here. So the create user here, I don't like the fact that we have the throw illegal exception here. I like to go with system. So when we created the user, create user optional users, user repository, find user by ID, user.get if it's present, throw an illegal exception. Yes, one point that we need to add. So if we made a post request again, it will progress normally. I don't want that terminal. Where's the other one? Yes, it supposedly added something new, but the user already existed. Yeah, that's the issue that we have. If the user existed, we shouldn't be adding him. So that's one error that we could also run to. How do we fix that? Wait, am I missing? So we have this one with this one, this one with this one, we have this one. Yeah, I think we have one extra. Wait, that's an error we shouldn't be getting, but let's see here. We have try, and then we have the catch, and then we have the try, and then we have the catch. We are missing the return statement. I mean, that's also return, so let's take this one also out. because I think this is the one causing the error. Why does it go like this here? I know it's a silly mistake, but I will need to check why does this mistake happen. That's the string email, and then we have the return. Nothing seems to be bad here, and then we have the exception, and then we have the return. It's actually probably more readable to have it like that. Where is the error? Dealing with syntax error is way easier. So for example, if the user is not found, instead of catching specific no such element with movement, have try and then catch, we have another catch. It was working just fine before I tried to rewrite it basically. No, something feels off. Let's remove all of that. And then we take all of this here, and we add it here, and then we uncomment it. Okay, still an error, so it didn't matter. I swear it didn't have an error before. Why specifically now? I will go back till the error was gone. Because I'm pretty sure we didn't have any errors at the beginning before we rewrote it. Maybe I should start learning Git also, in cases like that. So that I don't have to keep on using the Ctrl-Z multiple times. Yes, it was working before, but not after. I'm not sure why. What's the difference here? You have the try with the string, and then the return here, and then catch, exception. Okay, I mean, if it's working, it's working. Back to the issue with the post request that we have. Any user that will be given to the database will be saved regardless if they exist there already or not. I mean, we throw the exception here, which, like we said, only if and throwing exception here. Illegal state exception. Now we need to catch it. But how do we catch this? So I mean, it's void. How do you return an exception in a void statement? I never tried that before. Okay, let's think. First, we need to check if the user already exists or not. So the first thing that we should be getting is the ID. So monk ID, and it will be user dot get ID. After we get ID, we say if ID, and now we have to make a statement that searches the entire database for the ID and then compare both of them. Now, how will you do that? For you to be able to do that, you need to make a business logic that takes all the users and then stores them in a form of, no, not do we need everything? We only need the IDs. do you store them? Probably a hash set, since we don't want any. Actually, even something else can be also working. So how do you go around this? But storing that amount of data, because our database can have 1000 users. Is it really that efficient to actually save them inside the database, inside our program? I guess it will just defeat the purpose of having the database to begin with. Okay, how do we go around this? If we want to check whether the user already exists in the database or not, how do we do that without storing anything in the... Actually, how do we do that? I just want to see the answers, because there's multiple ways to go around this. Yes, we already did that part. We don't even need the email, because actually no, if someone is trying to log in, they will use their email, and we want to compare the email with its relative ID. So service layer, check if the user exists. Yeah, that's the juicy part. Okay, we just say is present. Yeah, that's why I was thinking, if we decided to create something like a hash set or something, it would have been gone out of control. And I always seem to remember that the control layer doesn't take anything besides the IPs. So we are always given the email, so we need to get the email first, the ID. So let's divide the tasks again. How about we get something new? Let's spend this again. So here, how will the plan go? First, we want to get the ID and email. Sorry, that's the email and ID. This one will be given by the user, and then we will have to search the ID in the database. That's the first step, and this will probably be in the service layer, but we need another method in the user repository to be able to use it. So how do we achieve that? We have find by ID, the entire class, but we don't have find by email. So the first thing that we should probably be creating is optional also, like always. Not override. Let's just put the optional capital. Optional users. Then we say find user by email, and we add the variable as long. Wait, how do we find user by ID? We're getting the ID. Okay, this part doesn't make sense. I have to write a comment about this part. How do we find user by ID when we have Okay, yeah, it's finding the user, not the ID itself. And we're also here getting the user, not the ID itself, so it will be wiser to add string email. It's the same, but for some reason isn't working. Not sure why. I think that should be the first thing that we research now. I have delayed this part a lot, but if I want to be able to do anything, and we are big working from the back end to the front end, basically from the repository first and then to the controller at the end, I should be studying this part. Where is it? Here, signature, method signature. How do they work and how to study them? Provides a variety of jQuery methods that allow you to perform common database operation without needing to write SQL queries. Yes, basic CRUD application. Save multiple entities. Find by ID. Isn't that what I just wrote? Find user by ID. Query method signature using keywords. Is there anything on YouTube actually related to that?
Hello guys, welcome to another tutorial. Today we're gonna learn query methods. To get things started, I have created a sample project and I'll explain what I have done there. So here I have created a domain. It will create a table in the database. The table is user and it has the ID of user ID of active.
Okay.
So another put a repository, another process, and I'll use Postman to send the request as well. So
okay, they're also using response entity here.
that query method that's
Probably need to search for the manual for that immediately. Defining the query method. Query method lookup strategy. The following strategy is available for repository infrastructure to resolve query. Query creation. The query builder mechanism built into Spring Data repository infrastructure for useful building. Now, how do I get that? I remember there was a website that had all the keywords laid out for you. That's Spring Data GPA. I should probably read this also. Yeah. Repository keywords. Maybe I should actually start reading the manual. Spring Boot Data GPA. Persistent entities, query methods. And then we have this. Okay, I think that will be the mission for tomorrow. Because I think we learned quite a lot with this part. I mean, we achieved the goal of learning the way to handle errors. And I should probably be studying this a bit more. So let me refresh my mind. Response entity class, the one that we keep on using to make the response. I mean, it can be generated automatically, but we want to make it more custom so that we can add the error message instead of having just 545. Request mapping, that's the one on top of the class. Request body. What was request body again? Good question. I feel like I've heard it. Yes. Now we have the post request. What was request body. Add. Nope. Request body. What is it used for with parameters? Yeah, this is specific to post requests, and again post request. Yep, okay, I remember. So because this post request that we have, we get the entire HTTP request, not the body, and this is to just get the body and then map it to the user. Because post mapping requires getting data from the front end and then give it to the back end, and we cannot just have it as, you know, just raw HTTP request format with a JSON, and that makes it just a body for the user to use. Okay, good reminder. No constructor, it's the instance variable auto-wired false. We need the constructor and way. So yes, the way we use auto-wired is by having an instance variable and then auto-wiring the constructor. Should probably Google that a bit more, but later. Dispatch it servlet, I always get to forget. Maybe I should write the definitions here, or what I understood by my words. Request body used with post requests when we receive the HTTP post request, we extract the body to be able to use it in code and then save it in the database. Now I feel like I every day Google this part and I keep on forgetting it. The act as central Spring Boot responsible for handling the HTTP request. So yeah, it is the one that handler mapping. Is it a thing? What is that? Is a fundamental component of Spring. It's part of the Spring Web MVC framework. Okay, it's part of the framework that handles the HTTP request and then map it to either a post create. Wait, was it post? I need to check the names again, but first get mapping to other annotation. Yes, it maps a post request to get mapping or post mapping, sorry, post mapping annotation, for example. So that's that part. The user direct should always be in the same directory. I will never forget that. Name of the database and the class was different. Yeah, that caused a lot of issues, and you can solve that by just adding the table. The way you solve that is just add table and then you specify the name and you say equals to. Yes, that's the part. And ChatGPT always seems to be connecting it to the JDBC for some reason. path variables. Yes, path variables was to get the ID from the URL. Optional wrapper class that forces us to handle the null option. Creating a logic by using a method getter plus a method signature from the API. Yeah, that didn't cross my mind for some reason, that we can use actually the getter to get what we want, but not having the default constructor for users, getting the specific error and handling nulls. Okay, that's what we did actually today. So I think tomorrow we will be diving more into JPA and JQ and JPQL and custom query and all that stuff. I think I have the documentation ready here. I think I might as well just read everything from the start to the finish, because I really think it's an interesting concept that you have written English word and then you can combine them together to make an actual working method without needing to actually write the method itself. I'm interested to see how it works. But that's one is for the normal one. I wonder how long is the original Spring Boot one. Learn guides about RESTful API. I want the documentation actually. Because I want to know more how Spring Boot works. Spring Boot documentation. So the one that we're actually doing is part of the big thing basically. Reference, we have core features, web data, messaging, testing, all that good stuff, and then we have how-to guides. Not really interested in the how-to for now. I just want to know how Spring Boot actually works. We have the documentation here, first steps, upgrading, developing web, core structure, add configuration, best practices. Maybe I should reward myself a bit. Because we have the Spring Boot. I want to understand how does Spring Boot work. And then we have JDBC, JPA, MongoDB, REST, Neo4j. We don't need all of that. The authentication and the GraphSQL. Then we have sessions. If I want to understand how does Spring Boot works under the hood, which documentation should I read? Can I click it? No. I don't think it's mentioning that one. I think it's mentioning this one here. Okay. DevTools, testing and configuration. I think it was mentioned here. Nope, okay. So we have the core technologies, data access, web on serverless stack, testing, integration, language support. But I'm interested in the core technologies, which are a lot. We have resources, validation, data binding, type conversion. There is a lot. Spring core concepts, dependency injection, application bean lifecycle, Spring context, leverage the application context, understand auto configuration and initialization beans, Spring web, auto configuration. For some reason there is a lot of multiple documentations here and I'm not sure why. I'm not even sure where to start to begin with. Okay, technically I will start by the JPA part, but this right here I am not sure. Okay, they seem to have a lot of stuff here. Create a standalone Spring application, embedded Tomcat, getting started. Okay, these are just tutorials. And there is even courses here, okay. Should have watched these actually.
Hi Spring fans, my name is Josh Long, and I am the first Spring Developer Advocate. I've been doing this since 2010, and I've spent more than a decade trying to help people build value for their...
If I knew about this, I would have probably started with them, but I will keep that in mind whenever I try to check for tutorials later. To just go for the documentation and then learn. Quick start. What is Spring overview? Yeah, I think I should dive more into their website next time to at least understand how Spring Boot actually works. I mean, the website looks good, so, but we will see. That's a bit too ahead, but I also write it here that we also need to check on the Spring Boot documentations, but we will start with other stuff, because once we finish this one, the only thing that's left is the service layer, the controller layer. There's nothing complicated about it, and then I'll be able to properly finish my CRUD application. We are still missing two key components to the CRUD application. We did the create, we did the read, I think this one was the get, and creating is the post. Good thing I saved it down here to check. Create, read, update. We haven't done the update yet. That's the put. Then we have the delete, which is delete. We finished this one. I want a line across, but and then we finish this one also. I mean, the put and delete will be not as difficult once you understood the other part, so that's why we'll be starting with these things here. And don't forget the... Actually, we finished this. Or no, I meant as actually reading the class and how it works. Never mind. The JPA repository, I have Jackson. How dependency injection works. I mean, we will see all of that. But that should do it for today. We finished one task. One task each day is the tempo I'm going with now. Till we will see how it goes later. So I'll see you next time.